Good evening, everybody. This is my name is Robin Kearney-Frazier. This is our Homesteaders and Preppers Guild meeting for June the 20th. This evening, we're going to be talking about screwworms. While I might not have a medical degree, and I'm certainly not an expert in homesteading and farming, I do have a doctorate degree, so I do know how to research information and verify accuracy before creating a presentation. If you have any questions that I'm unable to answer, please email agrarian@guildsofrequiem.org. We'll also include that email address in the description when we upload this to YouTube and we put it out on our social media. I will research those questions and answer them for you. Anyone, well, I guess I don't need to say if anyone has any questions during the presentation because it's just Mikey and I at the moment. But if you have any questions or comments, please write them down. Please put them in the comments of where you're watching this video. We do watch our comments, so we will respond to you. Like I've already stated, this presentation will be uploaded to our YouTube channel on Monday, along with a summary of the points discussed today. It will be on either the Guilds of Requiem YouTube page. We also have a Homesteaders and Preppers Guild YouTube account, and I believe we have an agrarian account. I could be wrong. We've got a lot of social media out there that I manage. So today we're diving into the critical topic of, oops, I need to get rid of that. It's in my way. For any livestock owner or homesteader is the current threat of screwworms and screwworms. It's going to be a long day. And how implementing biosecurity measures can protect your animals and your livelihood. So what are screwworms? Let's start by defining exactly what we're up against. It is the parasite we're discussing today is known as the New World Screwworm. Scientifically, it's the Cochliomyia hominivorax. The second part of that second scientific name, hominivorax, literally translates from Latin to man-eater. So this taxonomic classification underscores just how aggressive and devastating this pest truly is to livestock operations and all warm-blooded animals alike. So to fully appreciate the danger they represent, it is vital to understand how they differ fundamentally from common blowflies, houseflies, or maggots that homesteaders are used to dealing with. Common blowflies are generally saprophagus decomposers, which means they lay their eggs strictly in decaying dead tissue, carrion, or soiled fleece. Screwworms, however, are obligate parasites. That means they require a living host to survive and lay their eggs exclusively in the live tissue of warm-blooded animals. This life cycle begins when a fertile female fly locates a warm-blooded host. She doesn't need a massive injury to strike. A tiny tick bite, a scratch from a briar, fresh branding, or an ear tag mark, or even a newborn's unhealed navel is all that it takes. She can lay a batch up to 400 eggs, neatly shingled vertically along that edge of the minor skin breach in less than a minute. So from there, within 12 to 24 hours, the larvae hatch, and this is where the danger begins. The larvae use specialized, sharply curved mouth hooks, as you can see here in the lower left-hand side, that literally eat the living flesh out of the host animal. As they feed collectively, they burrow deeper into the healthy muscle tissue, creating a large pocket-like cavity under the skin. This continuous destruction of living tissue rapidly leads to severe tissue damage, serious secondary bacterial infections, and ultimately the death of the host animal if left untreated. Because they can target any warm-blooded animal, ranging from the primary livestock herds and barnyard swine to family pets and, yes, even human beings, understanding this biological threat is our crucial first step in building an effective biosecurity defense. We've looked at the biology of the screwworm, so we're going to focus on what this actually looks like in the pasture. Early detection is absolutely vital because of how rapidly these larvae destroy tissue. As herd managers and homesteaders, your first warnings won't be any physical wounds. They'll be behavioral changes. A screwworm infestation can cause intense, localized pain and irritation. So you need to watch for any unusual isolation. Animals that normally stay tightly bunched with a herd or flock suddenly separate themselves, seek out secluded areas, dense brush, or even corners of a paddock. You'll notice a presentation of acute discomfort, frequent and frantic scratching, kicking, or biting at a specific area of their body. The infested animals often become highly lethargic. They'll lose their appetite, show a general drop in vitality as their bodies attempt to fight off mounting tissue trauma and systemic toxemia. There are some physical clues that when you bring the suspected animal in for closer inspection, they are definitive physical signs that separate a screwworm strike from a standard injury. First, you'll want to look at the character of the discharge. We kind of have probably should have warned people that some of these, even though they're illustrations, they can be disconcerting. Mikey, remind me to put a warning on our description. Though homesteaders and ranchers were probably used to seeing stuff like this. So the first look is the character of the discharge. Typically, a bacterial wound usually produces thick, yellowish pus. A screwworm wound, however, oozes a distinct, foul-smelling, bloody, and reddish-brown fluid. The specific discharge is caused by the larvae continuously tearing live blood vessels as they feed. Secondly, look closely at the architecture of the wound itself. Instead of healing or remaining superficial, the wound will appear unnaturally enlarged, displaying a visible pocket-like cavity under the skin. If you look directly into those pockets, you will see a dense, compact mass of moving larvae vertically packed together. They anchor themselves using their mouth hooks, leaving their posterior breathing spiracles exposed to the air. If you notice a minor scratch that suddenly expands into a deep weeping cavity within a matter of days, you must treat it as a suspected case immediately. So now we're, that urgency is the key. Sorry, my husband just walked in, the dogs are barking. So we're going to look at why managing your overall homestead setup is vital to preventing these strikes from occurring on our property in the first place. We've looked at how the screwworm manifests in the individual animal. Now we need to address the common misconception. The ideal that rigorous biosecurity protocols are only meant for massive commercial feedlots or industrial operations. The truth is that homesteads are uniquely, and I cannot talk tonight, I am so sorry, uniquely vulnerable to parasitic outbreaks, and understanding why is protecting your property. The biggest one is on a commercial farm, you typically find a single species managed uniformly across single pastures, uniformly across uniform pastures. A homestead, however, is highly integrated, a biodiverse ecosystem. You'll likely have cattle sharing the property boundaries with dairy goats, barnyard swine rooting near poultry runs, working stock dogs moving between fields, and perhaps barn cats or equine horse companions. Because the New World Screwworm is entirely non-host specific, it looks at this diverse spread of animals as one continuous banquet. It will jump effortlessly from a scratch on a dog's ear to a fresh hog bite to a sheep's shearing nick. The outbreak vector of this is a compounding risk of inaction. If a single animal on your property develops a screwworm strike and it goes unnoticed, that individual becomes a highly concentrated incubator. A single mature wound can drop hundreds of larvae into your soil where they burrow down, pupate, and hatch as a fresh wave of aggressive adult flies. Because your animals live in a close daily proximity, One unnoticed wound can trigger a localized outbreak that threatens every single mammal on your acreage within a matter of weeks. The bottom line is when a breakdown occurs, the fallout is devastating on two distinct fronts, economic and emotional. The economic toil hits hard and fast with steep veterinary intervention fees, structural modifications for quarantine, and the potential loss of a high-value breeding stock or production animal. And then there's the emotional and physically values of it, from managing a parasitic outbreak that requires an exhausting amount of labor, constant handling of stressed animals, and the distress of treating severe painful injuries, plus the personal connection you have with these animals on your small homestead. So biosecurity is simply the operational insurance policy that keeps your integrated homestead system working safely. Let's talk about how we actually build our first line defense. The bedrock of any biosecurity plan rests on two main pillars: exclusion, which is keeping the threat off of your property entirely, and monitoring, which is detecting an issue early if a breach does happen. We have our exclusion time, which is a 2 to 3 week quarantine period. This exclusion starts with a strict isolation protocol for any new animal arriving on your property or any animal returning from an outside event like a county fair and breeding lease. This should be something that many homesteaders are already aware of and practice, especially if they get new animals, new chickens before they add them to their flock. They should always go through a quarantine time. You must maintain a dedicated quarantine pen that is completely physically separated from your main herds and flocks. A secure quarantine means zero nose-to-nose interaction and no shared fence lines. For a parasite like a screwworm, this isolation period must last at least 2 to 3 weeks. This timeline is not an arbitrary number. It directly mirrors the biological incubation and larval development cycle of the pest. On our homestead, we have a 30-day isolation period to any new animals that come onto ours, and that should, for us, that is just how things should be. If an animal was struck right before transport, the wound will visibly open and the larvae will emerge well within the 21-day window period, which allow you to catch and treat the infestation before the pest can ever access the rest of the livestock. The second pillar is rigorous monitoring. You cannot manage what you do not measure or see. During peak fly seasons or following any regional alert, which we are currently under, a passive glance from across the pasture is not enough. You do need to perform a daily physical inspection of every animal under your care. When you're doing your rounds, your eyes should automatically scan the highest risk anatomical zones. This includes checking the base of horns, recent shearing nicks, ear tag sites, branding marks, and castrating or dehorning wounds. For breeding herds, you must check the vulvas of recently birthed dames and pay absolute meticulous attention to the unhealed navels of newborns. A screwworm fly needs less than a minute to deposit eggs in a fresh navel, and a daily check ensures that you interrupt that cycle before severe deep tissue and damage occurs. The third pillar is record keeping. These practices are backed up with solid record keeping. You log the exact dates an animal enters and exits quarantine, keep detailed notes on any minor cuts or scrapes you find during daily checks, and track exactly when these wounds have completely closed up and healed. This baseline data takes the guesswork out of your daily management and ensures no vulnerable animal slips through the cracks. So we're going to move on to the specific hands-on livestock management practices we can implement to prevent these. So we're going to break down our primary actionable steps into two distinct categories: proactive wound care and meticulous naval care for newborns. Our first step is a proactive wound care system. It's first and foremost, you must treat all wounds immediately. On a busy homestead, it's easy to see a minor abrasion on a goat or a scratch on a hog and think, I'll get that during weekend chores. Unfortunately, with the new World Screwworm, that delay can be fatal. The moment you spot an open skin breach, clean it thoroughly and apply a protective barrier. You should utilize fly repellent salves, smears, and topical sprays. We will have a Google Doc that we will share with you at the end of the program, at the end of the event, and that you can request at agrarian@guilds.requiem.org. That we will list some of the fly repellent salve, some of the smears and topical sprays that you can use. These specialized treatments serve a dual purpose. They protect the raw tissue to accelerate healing while actively repelling female flies looking for a place to deposit eggs. You also need to think strategically about your management calendar. If you have the flexibility, postpone all routine elective surgical procedures, such as castrating, dehorning, and cosmetic tail docking away from peak fly seasons. If you must perform these procedures during the high-risk months, the animals must be monitored multiple times a day and kept under strict preventative chemical barriers until the surgical sites are completely sealed and dry. Our second and perhaps most critical actionable practice centers on the breeding cycle of newborn management. A fresh, wet umbilical cord is essentially a beacon for the screwworm fly. It screams, "Here I am." Your protocol must dictate that you inspect newborn navels daily. Immediately following birth, you should apply an approved antiseptic, such as a 7% tincture of iodine or a veterinary-grade chlorhexidine solution directly to the navel cord. This doesn't just prevent systematic bacterial infections, it rapidly dries out the tissue, shortening the window of time that the navel remains attractive to parasites. Coupled with the antiseptic application, you must keep newborn areas meticulously clean and dry. Damp, soiled bedding in a kidding pen or calving stall generates ammonia smells and moisture that attracts flies to the area, dramatically increasing the probability of an early life strike. Clean straw, deep wood shavings, and well-ventilated birthing spaces are absolute necessities. Make these practices second nature on your property, and you drastically reduce available real estate for this parasite or other germs and diseases to take hold. So we're going to talk about how we extend these onto your homestead biosecurity. And this is, you can have the most immaculate standards for keeping a closed herd in the county, but if you allow contaminated equipment or boots onto your property, your defensive wall collapses. The first one is visitor protocols. Let's talk about the human component. On a homestead, visitors are common, whether they're neighbors stopping by, utility workers, or customers picking up farm goods. Your protocol must dictate that you maintain a visitor log. Every individual who enters production areas should sign their name, date, and the crucial information of have they been around other livestock in the past 48 hours. Just make that a little checkbox. Pretty much going to be able to guarantee you that that answer is yes. Second, you must minimize visitor access to your animal housing. This creates a clear boundary. If your neighbors want to see your new kids or calves, establish a designated viewing area or a fence line away from the actual pens. For essential visitors who must enter your barns, like veterinarians, farriers, and direct animal handlers, mandate a use of a foot bath or boot dip at the entry point. This simple rubber tub is filled with a broad-spectrum disinfectant. It ensures that they aren't tracking organic matter from a contaminated farm onto your soil. Even better, provide clean overalls and footwear specifically designated for your property, ensuring their clothes aren't carrying hitchhiking pests. If you have a greenhouse or gardens, this is also good information to keep for biosecurity on those as well. Next is the second half of the equation is equipment, which is an incredibly high-risk vector for mechanical transmission. You must clean and disinfect trailers before and after any use. If you borrow a livestock trailer from a neighbor or use your own to drop an animal off, it must be thoroughly pressure washed and sanitized before it backs up to your loading chute. Screwworms are highly attracted to residual odors of manure, urine, and stress pheromones left behind in transporting vehicles. Same rule applies to smaller tools, which range from disinfecting grooming tools, shearing combs, hoof trimmers, and ear taggers. Just like with people, never share unclean tools between homesteads. Ideally, you should maintain dedicated tools per species within your own operation to avoid cross-contamination between your poultry, small ruminants, and cattle. We understand that, we're small operations and you can't always do that. So what you can do is sanitize any gear, always following a thorough 3-step process. First, you want to remove debris, scrape away any visible dirt, manure, and bedding. Disinfectants cannot penetrate an organic crust. Then you're going to want to wash the tools by scrubbing the surface with a clean water and soap or detergent to remove biofilms. Thirdly, you're going to apply a disinfectant, which is a spray or submerge the tool in an approved agricultural disinfectant, allowing it to air dry for the fully recommended contact time. I personally prefer the submerge versus the spray, but I also have allergies that I can't handle things being sprayed around me. But by controlling what crosses our property line, you secure your perimeter. So what are we going to do when you suspect the parasite has somehow breached your defenses? If you suspect a new World Screwworm infestation, you are no longer managing a standard farm injury. You are dealing with a reportable veterinary emergency. I'm going to repeat that again. This is a reportable veterinary emergency. You must execute a precise 3-step protocol immediately to contain the biological threat. Isolate immediately. This must be your very first action, is to remove the animal from the pasture and isolate it completely. Move the animal into a secure fly-proof enclosure, such as a sealed trailer, a tightly screened stall, or an indoor veterinary bay. The primary goal here is to stop the larvae from falling off the animal to pupate. When the screwworm larvae reach full maturity inside the wound, their biological triggers to drop out of live flesh, fall into the ground, and burrow into dirt to transition into adult flies. That happens in your open pasture. You've just seeded a localized outbreak. So by keeping the animal over a hard, cleanable surface or inside a fly-proof zone, completely breaks this transmission vector. Second step is to preserve the wound. It is a well-meaning mistake, well-meaning procedure that we make, which is actually a critical mistake in this instance. It's natural instinct to want to immediately flush the wound, spray it with a larvicide, or pick the maggots out to relieve the animal's distress. Do not alter or treat the wound yet. You must avoid disturbing the wound because state and federal veterinarians require live, unaltered larval samples to achieve a definitive diagnosis. If you apply a chemical spray or salve prematurely, you may kill or degrade the larva, making microscopic identification of the characteristic breathing spiracles impossible. You need to leave the larval in place for official collection. If you must clean the outer edges for the animal's comfort, do so without introducing chemical agents into the cavity itself. Sorry, I'm starting to get a little brain fog going here, but we're almost done. Final step is non-negotiable. You must notify authorities immediately. You must contact your local herd veterinarian, your state veterinarian's office, or the USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services, the APHIS hotlines. When you make the call, be prepared to provide precise information, which is the exact location of your property, the species and number of animals affected, a timeline of when you first noticed the injury, and a description of the physical signs. Agricultural officials treat these reports with absolute urgency. They will coordinate a rapid response team to safely collect a sample, identify the pest, and help you establish an official containment protocol to safeguard both of your homestead and a broader agricultural community. Do not hesitate. Do not worry about a false alarm. In biosecurity, an overcautious report is infinitely better than a silent outbreak. Do not try to handle this under the counter, under the table, under radar. This is not negotiable. This is something that affects your entire homestead. It affects your neighbors. It affects the broader community as well. So we've gone from the understanding of the basic biology threat of the New World Screwworm, also referred to as NWS, all the way to executing highly specific, hands-on biosecurity protocols on our acreage. If there's one single concept I want to carry home with you today, it is this: biosecurity is not a passive checklist. It is an active daily practice. It is a shift in your mindset. Parasites like the screwworm do not look for a formal invitation to disrupt your operation. They simply exploit the smallest crack in your routine management. By establishing a solid 21-day exclusion quarantine, we prefer 30 on ours, performing rigorous daily physical checks, and jumping on wound care immediately, you effectively seal those cracks. This is a shared responsibility. None of our homesteads exist in a vacuum. Biological breach on one property can rapidly become a wildfire that sweeps across our entire county's agricultural landscape. When you take the extra 10 minutes to disinfect a shared livestock trailer, dip a newborn's navel, or keep a meticulous visitor's log, you aren't just protecting your own investment in the animals in your barns, you're actively shielding your neighbors' livelihoods as well. Finally, your vigilance is the ultimate line of defense. If you ever find a wound that looks wrong, if you see the characteristic reddish-brown fluid, or you spot a pocketed cavity of larvae, do not hesitate. Do not wait. Do not try to treat it under the radar. Isolate the animal immediately in a fly-proof space. Preserve the wound to protect the sample. Call your veterinarian or livestock officials without delay. On our sheet that you Google Docs that you can request, there is a 24/7 hotline. Many of your vets, there should be at least one veterinarian in your area that has an emergency hotline that you can call 24 hours a day. So we need to stand together as aware and prepared and proactive community. I want to thank you for your time today. If there's any specific questions you might have about implementing these practices on your homesteads, please, please, please comment, ask away, email us. If you'd like a quick reference sheet on tonight's presentation that includes who to call and that's located in Bandera County, I do believe I have added Kendall County, and I'll have Kerr County later tonight. Please email agrarian@guildsofrequiem.org. We'll send you the Google Docs link. This is a live document, meaning that we can update it and everyone will see that update when they log into it the next time. If you see that I've missed any local vets in your area, or you would like to add the vets that are in your county, again, please email agrarian@guildsofrequiem.org. We'll update the Google Doc. I aim to be making updates to the agrarian.guildsofrequiem.org website this week that will have this information on it, along with links to the Google Docs, so that you have them for your information. Once again, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. Have any questions, please let us know. We're here to help as a community.